Session number 12, Effective Action. This prosperity, this wealth, this health, this richness that wants to come through you must come through effective action. That means sacrifice. Now, sacrifice means making sacred. That means you are to take every act, small or large, and make it sacred. Make it a sacrament to your vision. Do everything with your full attention, with all of your power, as if you're doing it for God, as if you're doing it for excellence. And there will be so much power moving through you, even in your smallest acts, that you will become a conduit for more energy that will birth such good that is beyond what you could possibly imagine. Effective action means maintaining an awareness of the infinite while you do the most smallest thing. You can do this. What I want you to know as you're taking effective action, that the supreme power is at your service. God is for you and not against you. Cannot compromise its own nature nor contradict its essence. It's at your service. Let it express through you. Bob Proctor is going to show you how to do this in Session 12, Effective Action.
Have you ever noticed how pleasant it is to watch a professional do anything? I don't care if it's playing ball, if it's high jumping, if it's something in the Olympics, if it's playing hockey or soccer, or if it's a professional singer. When you watch a professional at work, there's something about it that just grabs you. You don't even have to understand what they're doing, but you do know that they're a real pro. They're involved in effective action with everything they do. Waddles begins this session by pointing out you must use your thought as I have directed in previous sessions. You must begin to do what you can do where you are, and you must do all that you can do where you are. You can advance only by being larger than your present place. You will not be larger than your present place when you leave undone any of the work pertaining to that place. The world is advanced only by those who more than fill their present places. If no one quite filled one's present place, there would be a backslide in everything. Those who do not quite fill their present places are a dead weight upon society, upon government, upon commerce and industry. They must be carried along by others at a great expense. The progress of the world is retarded only by those who do not fill the places they are holding. They belong to a former age and a lower stage or plane of life. Their tendency is towards degeneration. No society could advance if its people were smaller than their place, because social evolution is guided by the law of physical and mental evolution. In the animal world, evolution is caused by an excess of life. When an organism has more life than can be expressed in the functions of its own plane, it develops the organs of a higher plane, and a new species is originated. There would never have been new species had there not been organisms which more than filled their places. The law is exactly the same for you. Your getting rich depends upon your applying this principle to your own affairs. This is a beautiful concept as you stop and think about it. We understand this in all of nature, and for some strange reason, this is not really taught to us in school. This is not brought to our attention as we're growing up. Wallace Wattles has done a magnificent job of bringing this to our attention in this particular program. And, of course, Rhonda Byrne certainly did in the movie The Secret. Wattles continues by bringing our attention to the fact that every day is either a successful day or a day of failure. And it is the successful days which get you what you want. If every day is a failure, you can never get rich. If every day is a success, you cannot help but get rich. If there is something that may be done today and you do not do it, you have failed insofar as that thing is concerned, and the consequences may be more disastrous than you imagine. You cannot foresee the results of even the most trivial act. You do not know the workings of all the forces that have been set moving in your behalf. Much may be depending on your doing some simple act. It may be the very thing which is to open the door of opportunity to great possibilities. You can never know all the combinations which supreme power is making for you in the world of things and human affairs. Your neglect or failure to do some small thing may cause a long delay in getting what you want. Do every day all that can be done that day. I have explained to audiences all over the world that you don't have to be concerned about how you're going to get to your goal. As a matter of fact, you couldn't even tell anyone how you're going to get to your goal. Hillary didn't know how to get to the top of the mountain. The Wright brothers didn't know how to get the plane in the air until after they had got there. And I've come to the conclusion even then they wouldn't be able to tell you. You see, there's all kinds of serendipitous little things happen that we never even quite notice, that are linked in to the realization of our goal, that links in to the attractive force that brings everything to us. And it's so simple sometimes, it's so small that we don't even notice it. For example, you may have a particular challenge that you're faced with. You've got a problem that you're trying to solve, and you may be working on it for quite a while, and it's really slowing your progress. And you're mentally working on it. You're in the shower and you're thinking about it. Then you get busy and you forget it, but then you think about it again. And one day you may be in the supermarket and you're lined up to take your purchases through the cashier, and a little kid bangs into your cart. And you turn to look to see what happened, and before you even see the child, your eyes strike the headline on some rag tabloid that's in a rack by the cash register. And the headline on that little tabloid triggers something in your mind, and the solution to your problem comes. Now, 2 years from now, when you have accomplished the task that you were working on, do you think you're ever going to think of that kid bumping into your cart or the headline that was in that tabloid? But you see, it all works. You say, oh, well, that has nothing to do with it. Everything has something to do with it. This whole universe moves in precise order. There are no accidents. Everything in the universe moves in precise order. Spirit never expresses itself other than perfectly. Waddell says there is, however, a limitation or qualification that you must take into account. You are not to overwork or to rush blindly into your business in the effort to do the greatest possible number of things in the shortest possible time. You are not to try to do tomorrow's work today or to do a week's work in a day. It is really not the number of things you do, but the efficiency of each separate act that counts. One of the most productive human beings that I've ever had the pleasure of knowing and was fortunate enough to have as a mentor and a teacher and someone to emulate was Earl Nightingale. In Proverbs it says, "Seest thou a man diligent in his work, and he will stand before kings." Well, the first time I walked into Earl Nightingale's office, I saw on the credenza that he had on the wall beside his desk a picture of Earl and his wife being presented to Queen Elizabeth. It proves that that proverb is literally accurate right to today. Seest thou a person diligent in their work, and they will stand before kings. Waddell said, every act is, in itself, either effective or ineffective. Every ineffective act is a failure. Permit me to give you another excellent example with respect to actions that I learned from Earl Nightingale. I was with him one morning early for breakfast prior to a speaking engagement. And we were both going to the same place, and Earl asked, "Do you want to meet me for breakfast?" Well, of course, I said yes. And I always had a few questions prepared whenever I was going to be alone with him. I wanted to pick the man's brain. It was almost like he was the reservoir of all knowledge. Well, at any rate, I sat down this day, and I had never knew anyone that had accomplished as much in such a short period of time as he did, and yet I never saw him rushing. He never seemed to be moving too fast. And so I asked him that morning, I said, "Earl, how did you learn to master time management?" I can still hear his fork hitting the plate and him looking at me with a sort of a grin on his face. He said, "I never mastered time management." He said, "Nobody masters time management. Time can't be managed." He said, "I merely manage activity." And he said, "I just write down a half a dozen things that I have to do tomorrow, and I focus on them until they're done. I start with number 1 and I don't think of number 2. When I'm working on number 2, I forget about number 1 and I don't give any thought to number 3. And he said, if I don't get them all done, he said, I will do them tomorrow. But he said, I give everything I've got to what I'm doing. Well, isn't that what Wallace Wattles is talking about? Now, Wattles goes on to say, every act is, in itself, either effective or ineffective. Every ineffective act is a failure. And if you spend your life doing ineffective acts, your whole life will be a failure. The more things you do, the worse for you if all your acts are ineffective ones. On the other hand, every effective act is a success in itself. And if every act of your life is an effective act, your whole life must be a success. Make up your mind right now that you're going to do that. You're going to begin focusing on every act, and you're going to do it as best you can do it. Wattles points out that the cause of failure is doing too many things in an ineffective manner, and not doing enough things in an effective manner. You'll see that it is a self-evident proposition that if you do not do any ineffective acts, and if you do a sufficient number of effective ones, you will become rich. You have to become rich. If it is possible for you to make each act an effective one, you see again that the getting of riches is reduced to an exact science like mathematics. The matter turns then on the question of whether you can make each separate act a success in itself. And this you can certainly do. You can make each act a success because the infinite is working with you, and the infinite cannot fail. The supreme power is at your service. To make each act effective, you have to only put your own power into it. Every action is either strong or weak. When you are strong, you are acting in a certain way, which will make you rich. Every act can make you strong and effective by holding your vision while you're doing it and by putting the whole power of your faith and purpose into it. It is at this point that the people who separate mental power from personal action fail. They use the power of mind in one place and at one time, and they act in another place at another time. Thus, their acts are not successful in themselves. Too many of them are ineffective. But if you put the supreme power in every act, no matter how commonplace, every act will be a success in itself. Every success opens the way to other successes. Your progress toward what you want and the movement of what you want toward you will become increasingly rapid. Remember that successful action is cumulative in its results. When you begin to move toward a larger life, more things attach themselves to you, and the influence of your desire is multiplied. This is because the desire for life is inherent in all things. Do every day all that you can do that day, and do each act in an effective manner. In saying that you must hold your vision while you're doing each act, however trivial or commonplace, I do not mean to say that it's necessary at all times to see the vision distinctly in its smallest detail. During your leisure hours, you should focus your imagination on the details of your vision in order to fix it firmly in your memory. If you wish speedy results, spend practically all of your spare time in this practice. By continuous contemplation, you will get the picture of what you want firmly fixed in your mind and completely transferred to the mind of the formless substance. Then, in your working hours, you need only to mentally refer to the picture to stimulate your faith and purpose and to put forth your best effort. Many years ago, Albert Ian Gray made a speech. He was the secretary at the time to the Prudential of America. It was a famous speech. It's a speech that I've recorded. I know Earl Nightingale recorded. It's written in many different places, and it was called The Common Denominator of Success. He said the common denominator of success was informing the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. Let me repeat that. He said the common denominator of success was informing the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. And a young fellow asked Mr. Gray one time, he said, "Mr. Gray, why do successful people like doing these things?" And he said, "They don't. That's why they've turned them into habits." That's essentially what Wallace Wattles is suggesting to us. He said, do it till it's fixed in your mind. Well, you know, an idea that's fixed in your mind is a habit. And when the idea is fixed in your mind, it'll take no conscious effort. That idea, that vision is just going to keep flashing on your mind. Wattles goes on to say, contemplate your picture in your leisure hours until your consciousness is so full of it that you can grasp it instantly. See, that's what Albert Ian Gray was telling us. Now, Wattles said, you will become so enthusiastic about its bright promises that the mere thought of it will call forth the strongest energies of your whole being. Now, here again, Wallace Wattles is saying, let us again repeat our syllabus, and by slightly changing the closing statement, bring it to the point that we have now reached. There is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which, in its original state, permeates, penetrates, and fills the inner spaces of the universe. A thought in this substance produces a thing that is imaged by the thought. You can form things in your thought, and by impressing your thought upon formless substance, can cause the thing you think about to be created. In order to do this, you must pass from the competitive to the creative mind. You must form a clear mental picture of the things you want. And you must do with faith and purpose all that can be done each day, doing each separate thing in an effective manner. Wow, what a great session. If we do exactly what Wattles is suggesting, we're going to turn the science of getting rich into a habit. And when you do, then the words of Napoleon Hill are going to ring in your mind. He said, when riches begin to come, they will come so fast and so furious that you'll wonder where they've been hiding through all those lean years. Let's go to the questions for this particular session. They're pretty good. Here's the first one. How much should you try to do each day? When you answer that, here's the next one. Why? Number 2, what is the cause of evolution? That's a very, very important point that we've covered in this session. Number 3, how can you make each act effective? Number 4, do you feel that you are acting effectively now? If not, why not? Good way to correct it, isn't it? And finally, number 5, what is said in this session about the vision? All right, now it's time for a little review and the exercise session. I want you to build the image of the stick person in your mind. Come on, now get that picture. I want you to see your head as your mind. Let's get that horizontal line going again from ear to ear, and everything from the neck down as being the body. Do you know that whenever I think of me, I see the stick person? And whenever I think of the stick person, I think of me. If I were to look at you, I guarantee I'd have a horizontal line right across the center of your head. And I'd be working with you knowing that I'm going through your senses into your conscious mind, and I'll want to get your conscious attention. And you know the best way to get your conscious attention is for me to focus my conscious attention on you, to talk to you about what's important to you. Now, what is important to you? Well, I'll tell you one thing that's vitally important to you is your attitude. I think Earl Nightingale described attitude better than any I've ever read. He said that attitude is the composite of our thoughts, feelings, and actions. So let's take a look at this for a moment. Here we've got the stick person. Now come back to your mind. You see the top half of your head. You see energy flowing into your consciousness. Now remember what Waddell said? Getting rich is a result of doing things in a certain way. The way is by law. Let's understand that our mind operates by law. Now, as this power flows into our consciousness, you either choose your thoughts or you accept them from an outside source. Let's take a look at that from another angle. You can look at the headlines of the newspaper. You can listen to the headline breaking news about how the economy is going in the wrong direction. Now, you can either choose to reject that or to pay attention to it. You can choose to build an image in your mind that the economy is improving. I honestly believe that my business is booming. It's getting better. I'm not quite sure what's going on in the outside economy. I don't pay any attention to it. So the thoughts that develop into images in your mind are either coming from outside or you're originating them. But these images or ideas in your conscious mind have been built there either by you or someone else. Now, when they're there, you then impress the images upon your subconscious mind. Now, how do you do that? I want you to visualize like a cloud, an image in your consciousness, and now it's just sinking through that imaginary line that separates the conscious from the unconscious, the conscious from universal intelligence, the conscious from the formless substance that's in you. It's omnipresent. If it's omnipresent, it has to be in you. The truth is it's 100% evenly present in all places at the same time. Now, as this image flows into your subconscious, you then impress the image upon your subconscious mind, and that causes feelings or vibrations. See, the image sets up the vibration. Feeling is conscious awareness that you're in that vibration. So we could say the feelings or vibrations cause actions, and the actions cause results that you're getting in your life. It's how you're acting that's determining the results that you're getting. Now, if we want to take this to the next step, we will say that our attitude is the composite of the thoughts, the feelings, and the actions. Look at it this way. If you go to a person's place for dinner, and they may serve cake, and you could say, "That's really good cake." And they may say, "Would you like another piece?" You would never say, "Wow, that was really light flour," or, "They were great spices." You wouldn't say that. You'd say that was good cake. What is the cake? The cake is the composite of a number of different ingredients brought together, and we call it a cake. What's attitude? The attitude is a number of different ingredients brought together, our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. So we want to make sure that they're in sync. We want to make sure that our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions are all lined up. So let's carry this to the next stage now. You choose your thoughts cause your feelings cause your actions. Now get this, your actions cause a reaction. The action-reaction alters the conditions, the circumstance, the environment, which adds up to results. Now, you're going to come across a piece of text where you're going to be asked that. The sheet has letters, has numbers. You got to fill it in. So you better study this. I'm going to repeat it one more time. You choose your thoughts cause your feelings, which cause your actions. Your actions cause a reaction. It's the action-reaction that alters the conditions, the circumstance, the environment. You add them together, we call that results. I often say your actions cause a reaction which alters the CCE, or the results. Got it? I know you have. Now we're going to progress to a real big idea. Have you ever noticed when you go to do something you've never done before, instantly doubt, worry, fear, boom, it's the terror barrier strikes. It just scares the living daylights out of you. I'll give you a good example. I think I mentioned in a previous session that I was sitting in a fire hall when I first picked up this information. It was the best job I'd ever had, and I'd been there for 5 years. No one ever quit this job, and they couldn't fire you. You were working for the government. They don't fire people. Do you know, the thought of leaving that job brought about so much fear in me that I actually got sick. I was operating with the false concept that there was security in the job. The truth is there's no security in a job. There's no security in any job. Security's an inside thing. If you haven't got it there, you haven't got it. I like the way Earl put it. He said, if you think there's security in a job and you lose your job, you're going to be totally demoralized. Well, I was demoralized just thinking of leaving the job. Why? I had to go through the terror barrier. The terror barrier is a strange thing. There's all kinds of salespeople hit the terror barrier when it comes to phoning a prospect. We hit the terror barrier whenever we go beyond the comfort zone, whenever we step out of our paradigm. Now, our paradigm is our conditioning. We're conditioned to act the way we're acting. I want you to build a visual in your mind. I want you to see 4 stick people, A, B, C, and D. Now, I want you to put A directly in front of your face. Over to the right and up about a foot, put B. There's another stick person. Now, you go over further to your right and up a little higher, and you have C. There's a third stick person. Then I want you to drop an imaginary barrier, a psychic barrier down on the far side of the third one, and then a little further up, and on the right-hand side of that psychic barrier, we're going to put a 4th one. Now, I'm going to run through this again, and I want you to follow me. I want you to put an imaginary stick person right in front of your face. Go to the right and go up about a foot, and you put another one. The one in front of your face we're going to refer to as A. The one over a little and up a little we're going to say is B. And then you go over a little farther. We're moving to the right and we're moving up. You have another one, and it's called C. Now, to the right-hand side of the stick person we've labeled C, I want you to put an imaginary wall. It's an imaginary barrier, and we're going to call that the terror barrier. And on the far side of the terror barrier is a place we call freedom. What did Bill Gove say? If I want to be free, I got to be me. Not the me I think you think I should be. Not the me I think my wife thinks I should be. Not the me I think my kids think I should be. If I want to be free, I've got to be me. And you know something? I want to be free. And you want to know something else? So do you. Well, if you go to the right-hand side of that imaginary line is another stick person, and we're going to refer to that stick person as D. Now, you've got them all lined up, and you notice we keep floating to a higher and a higher and a higher level. We're going to go up where the air is a little thin and the ideas are big and they're beautiful and they're creative. But let's come back down now to A. We're going to say the stick person marked A is living in bondage. That's right. They're in bondage. They're in a prison, and it's a prison of their own making. Now, I want you to put an X in the subconscious mind. I want you to put an X in the body, and then put an R out beside the body and put an X beside the R. So we've got X in the subconscious, X in the body, X beside results. What does X mean? X is just the unknown factor. Now, the X is the conditioning. Our subconscious mind is conditioned to produce X-type results. Let's suppose we're earning $40,000 a year. We're earning $40,000 a year because we're conditioned to earn $40,000 a year. That's called the paradigm. Now, keep in mind, there's a funnel of energy flowing right into the stick person, into the conscious mind of the stick person that's straight in front of your face. And as the power flows in, That person has the ability in their conscious mind to build any image they want. What kind of an image will they build? They'll build an X-type image. Why? Because the paradigm or the conditioning's controlling them. They think the thoughts of a person that's earning $40,000 a year. And they never change those thoughts. They want to change the 40. They'd love to earn 50. Would they ever love to earn 50? When they talk about more, they're not talking about much more. Even a little bit is a lot to them. But here they are. They're thinking the same thoughts, which cause the same feelings, which cause the same actions, which produce the same results. They're caught in a doom-fulfilling cycle. All right? That's bondage. Now let's go to B. Where'd we go? We went a little bit to the right and a little higher. Now, this is a process that we're explaining here. We put in the subconscious mind an X in the body, and an X in results. It's the same person, same conditioning, same results, but now this isn't bondage anymore. This is a point of reason. This person has read that they can think. They're listening to the secret science of getting rich. Probably for the first time in their life, they're exposed to mind-expanding information. And so they get a Y-type idea. The Y-type idea represents $75,000 a year. That's a long way. That's almost twice what they're earning. What were they programmed to earn? $40,000. And what are they thinking about? They're thinking about earning $75,000. That's a Y idea. Now, as long as the idea remains in the conscious mind, their income remains the same. It stays at 40. As long as the Y idea stays in the conscious mind, nothing happens. You see, it's the X idea that causes them to feel the way they feel. So they feel fine, and they're using their educated mind. That's their conscious mind. That's where the intellect is resident. They get out their calculator, and they're talking to somebody, and the person says, if you do this or you do that, you would arrive at earning $75,000 a year. And they see it. They consciously understand it. But nothing happens. Why? They never internalized the idea, and they never got emotionally involved. How do we do that? Well, let's go to C. Now we go over and we go a little higher. Now this is where everything goes crazy in this person. This is what we call conflict. This is where they take the Y idea and they get emotionally involved. Now, do you know what happens? Instantly and automatically. They create doubt and worry, they create fear, and they create anxiety. They are mixing the Y with the X. The Y will not mix with the X. Their central nervous system is affected. It scares the living daylights out of them. They go ahead, they don't know where to go. And they hit the terror barrier. Where do they go? They go right back into bondage. And they're so happy to be back there. It's not scary back there. They may not have much, but they're comfortable. There's no fear. They don't have to worry. They know exactly how to do what they're doing. They've been doing it all their life. This is the most normal place in the world for them to live. But you know something? They've had a glimpse at a better way of life. It's like the saying goes, how are you going to keep them down on the farm after they've seen TV? They are up there, yet scared them, but they also saw the good. It not only scared them, it excited them. That's right. You see, the terror barrier is when you're excited and you're scared at the same time. It's a strange thing. How do you go through that terror barrier? How do you crash through that psychic barrier, that wall that stands between you and freedom? Someone once said, when fear knocks on the door, faith opens it, and lo, there was no one there. How do we get through there? We get through understanding. What did we say was the opposite to worry and doubt? We said the opposite to worry and doubt was understanding. How did we say we develop understanding? There's only one way to develop understanding, and that's through study. We go through that terror barrier by understanding what's causing the fear. The thing that's causing the fear is that the idea is not in harmony with the old paradigm. And paradigms are insidious. Paradigms will keep you where you are. They put up every block that they can think of. I want to suggest that you crash right through that terror barrier. What's the worst that could happen? You could end up back in bondage with what you had. That's the worst. What's the best that could happen? You would be free. God created you. You were born free. You've been given faculties beyond the scope of your imagination. So we crash through the terror barrier. We say, I'm going to do it. And you take the why idea and you keep getting emotionally involved. Does the fear leave? Not right away, it doesn't. Sometimes it'll intensify. It may cause you to be really scared. But let's operate with understanding. If you keep impressing the image of the why idea, you keep getting emotionally involved, you keep acting on it, the X turns to Y and you're free. You've gone through the terror barrier. What did Thoreau say? If you will advance confidently in the direction of your dream and endeavor to live the life that you've imagined, you're going to meet with success unexpected in common hours. You're going to be driving down the road one day and you're going to realize you're not afraid anymore. You're earning the 75 and you're comfortable. And you can see how you can get to 100. But understand this. If you want to go to 200, you've got to go through the terror barrier again. Now, I've been going through the terror barrier for years. I'm going through the terror barrier now. I'm always going through the terror barrier. At least I know what's happening. I know what's causing the fear, so I don't let it bother me. In the last exercise in this particular session, Waddell said you must begin to do what you can do where you are, and you must do all you can do where you are. You can advance only by being larger than your present place. You must grow where you are. So sit down and describe what you can do now in spite of the fear that accompanies the idea. Think of what I'm saying. Sit down and write out, make a written description of what you can do right now in spite of the fear. And I guarantee you'll change your life. And you will never look back. And you're going to feel so good about you. You're going to feel so grateful. And you're going to realize that the secret science of getting rich has helped you through that terror barrier. Tell everybody you meet about it. Earn yourself a fortune. Change everybody's life you know. This is Bob Proctor, and thank you.
Hello, this is Jack Canfield. When I was a very young man, I remember hearing, "You'll never get paid for more than you're doing until you're willing to do more than you're paid for." It took me a while to understand this one. You see, the truth is, we never have to be concerned with what we're getting. There's a law that's working all the time that takes care of that. We just have to be concerned with what we're doing. I love the way Wallace Wattles put it in this session. He says, you must begin to do what you can do where you are, and you must do all that you can do where you are. You can advance only by being larger than your present place. And no one is larger than his present place who leaves undone any of the work pertaining to that place. The world is advanced only by those who more than fill their present place. That is so important and so profound that I'm going to read it once again. Really listen to this. You must begin to do what you can do where you are, and you must do all that you can do where you are. You can advance only by being larger than your present place. And no one is larger than his present place who leaves undone any of the work pertaining to that place. The world is advanced only by those who more than fill their present place. In the session on acting in a certain way, we talked about the necessity of action. You must be involved. You must be personally acting. In this session, we're talking about effective action, and there's a difference here. There are a dozen lines in this lesson that really caught my attention. Wallace says this, "Every act can be made strong and effective by holding your vision while you are doing it, and by putting the whole power and faith of your purpose into it. It is at this point that the people who separate mental power from personal action fail. They use the power of mind in one place, and at the same time, they act in another place and at another time. Thus, their acts are not successful. But if you put the supreme power into every action, no matter how commonplace, every act will be a success in itself." He also says, "Every success opens the way to other successes. Your progress toward what you want and the movement of what you want toward you will be increasingly rapid. Remember that successful action is cumulative in its results. In other words, effective action adds up a whole lot faster. The Chicken Soup for the Soul books were a publishing phenomenon. According to Time magazine, it was the publishing phenomenon of the decade. In fact, Mark and I have a Guinness Book World Record for having 7 Chicken Soup for the Soul books on the same New York Times bestseller list on the same day, beating out Stephen King, who'd only had 6 up to that point. We also have a Guinness Book record for the world's largest book signing. When we released Chicken Soup for the Kid Soul and again Preteen Soul, we had simultaneous book signings in major cities all over the country, with child movie stars and TV actors at Planet Hollywood restaurants. Now, when we started initially to take action on this concept of Chicken Soup for the Soul, I can't say that we were extremely effective, but at least we were taking action. We quickly learned, thankfully, that so much greater leverage could be had by thinking more creatively and then taking effective action. We learned to show up 100% wherever we were. We learned to play full out no matter what, to give it 100% all of the time. I can remember our first book signing. 6 people came to it. It did start to get a little better, but I remember another book signing in a mall. Mark and I were in a Borders bookstore, and there was hardly anyone there. And Mark went out into the mall and started going up to strangers and saying, "Do you know who's signing books at Borders? 15 minutes from now, Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield. They're amazing. Don't miss it. This is a lifetime opportunity." Well, about 15 minutes later, we had about 100 people in the bookstore. And then when Mark walked up, they all kind of groaned and looked at him and laughed. And Mark said, "Look, I had to do whatever I had to do to get you here. I think this book's going to change your life." Now when we do book signings, we have 600 people show up. You've got to be willing to pay your dues. We held the vision, and then we took effective action on the concept that we were marketing and selling a best-selling book. So make sure that all of your actions are effective too. Take a moment right now and take out that list we talked about making for your daily actions. Review what your planned activity is for the next 24 hours. Then make effective adjustments. Let's make sure that every act counts.